Welcome to CTV News Trendline with Michael Stittle and Nick Nanos.
Well, it's a tough week ahead, potentially, for the Liberal Party. The Prime Minister Office Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, will be testifying in front of a House committee looking into allegations of foreign election interference. Who is Katie Telford? How would you describe her, Nick?
Well, I would describe her, and I'd like to say I've never met her or spoken to her. I would describe her just as an observer, smart, focused, disciplined. You know, she's a long-serving chief of staff to the Prime Minister. And you know what? Chief of staffs don't usually last as long as she has. You know, it's usually a couple years. The fact that she was there at ground zero, kind of the Plymouth Rock, if there is such a thing, for the Trudeau movement before he was even leader, and the fact that she transitioned from working on his campaign team to being the chief of staff, and I would say successfully serving as his chief of staff, speaks to her importance to Justin Trudeau on a professional basis, and that she would be one of the, I'd call her, she'd be like one of the rocks on the team that would be a go-to advisor that would help support the work of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So very important person, very capable. No big mistakes. I don't think there's, it's easy to make a mistake when you're in politics. I don't really see any significant major mistakes in terms of her trajectory as chief of staff. So pretty solid.
It is remarkable. I was going through the list, of former chiefs of staffs over the past few decades, and most of them, as you say, Nick, are 2 or 3 years. I think there's only one who lasted 8 years, and matching Telford. It's a pretty impressive political accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. I would hazard to say that perhaps there's an understanding or an expectation that she would serve out perhaps the full term with Justin Trudeau as long as he was Prime Minister, which would also be, I would say, precedent setting almost in the modern era for sure, where we'd have a chief of staff there on day one to the very end of a mandate. And you know what? Justin Trudeau, he's been in power since 2015, so it's not like he was a short-term Prime Minister. But I think there's an expectation, or the idea at least, that there's a possibility that she would serve as long as Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister.
Now, just looking at the political risk for this appearance on Friday, Nick, the optics are never good, I'd say, when people see a picture of a chief of staff testifying anywhere. What do you think the Conservatives are looking for from this?
Well, I think they're looking for a number of things. First of all, in what a win would look like would be for Telford to make a mistake while on the stand. And I think I'm not sure how likely that is because she is a very focused, disciplined individual. And she also knows the file, obviously. So she's very well briefed. She probably knows more about the file than most of the parliamentarians that might be trying to cross-examine her. But the thing is, the stakes are quite high because the thing is right now it'll be a pressure cooker for the government and specifically for Justin Trudeau's chief of staff, and they'll that it's not a win situation, right? The question is can they get through this without any major political turbulence? Because from my perspective, at least for Canadians, they're not necessarily going to listen to the testimony. They're going to perhaps read the news, but it's going to be the picture. So that and the optics. And whenever any political staffer, and especially when a senior political staffer to a prime minister has to testify before the House of Commons, it's never usually good news. It's usually result of an issue that needs to be managed.
Well, Nick, let's listen to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau talking ahead of this appearance.
See, leaked intelligence reports that the Liberal Party received help in multiple elections from the communist government in Beijing, which wanted to keep the Prime Minister in place. We know that his top campaign officials like Katie Telford would have been aware of this help, and we need to know exactly what she knew and what the Prime Minister knew. Only she can answer these questions.
But he's hoping that if he attacks our institutions with a flamethrower, maybe he's going to be able to win. Well, that sounds like a really great way of making sure that all Canadians lose.
Yeah, very, very strong words from both sides. And I should say, Nick, this won't be the first time that Poilievre and Telford have met in a committee testimony.
Absolutely. And, the other thing that we should expect from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they might be asking questions that might sound a little weird, but that's probably because they're thinking about their social media and YouTube strategy. And so they're going to go into this thinking, what is the clip that they're going to get? What is the exchange that they want to get on the record that they could use in social media, that they could use on YouTube, and perhaps even use in the future, depending on what happens during the testimony, to use it in the future in an attack campaign. So we might see Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives kind of have a bit of a different tact because of their focus and the imperative for them to create content to galvanize the Conservative core and try to shake the Liberals. And, this is a prime opportunity. We were talking about the Nanos ballot numbers. The Conservatives still have about a 5-point advantage. If things go sideways for the Liberals in this testimony, especially with the Chief of Staff, that could help consolidate the Conservative advantage. Likewise, if the Liberals get through this without any significant damage, that could help them further narrow the gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals. So the stakes for this testimony are extremely high. It is a very uncertain, unpredictable environment. Emotions will be raw, and expect, Justin Trudeau talked about a flamethrower. Well, you know what? I expect the Conservatives to show up with a flamethrower for the interview or with the questions that they'll have for the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister.
Now, Telford was an accomplished debater in university. I mean,
Yep.
and I just going back and looking at her tangle with Poilievre during the We Charity testimony. She's more than capable of holding her own. But it sounds like her strategy might be to be boring, I suppose.
Yeah, well, boring works, right, for politicians. I think the one risk is if there's anything that the Conservatives or any of the parliamentarians have in terms of her connection to China, that would be a bit of a game changer, because we've just seen recently that the Trudeau Foundation Executive Board has recently stepped down because of monies that they accepted from an individual connected to the Chinese government. So I think the big question is will there be anything new? If there's nothing new, expect the Liberals to kind of sleepwalk through this testimony and hope that it's a non-issue. But if there's any kind of new revelation related to Chinese interference or alleged Chinese interference or influence, it'll give more oxygen, not just to the focus that Canadians now have on alleged interference from China in our democracy. It'll also probably help the Conservatives in the short term.
Obviously, a very, very different situation, but I also remember when Trudeau's former Chief Secretary, Gerald Butts, was entangled in the SNC-Lavalin scandal and ended up resigning, to take the pressure away from the Prime Minister, of course. And then he himself ended up testifying in front of the House committee after that.
Yeah, and maybe that's one of the lessons. If you're in the Conservative war room, you're thinking, okay, during the SNC-Lavalin controversy, we had there were a couple of ministers that ended up resigning, but also one of the Prime Minister's key advisors ended up stepping down. During the We Charity, they had a cabinet minister, Morneau, step down. For the Conservatives, what they are probably hoping for is some type of win where there's some sort of senior resignation that is connected to Justin Trudeau.